So I was an intern with Sunrise in Channel 7, and I used to go and I used to hear David Koch, if you remember Kochie, and I used to hear him when I was like early mornings going for the news stories. But I found that the news, as many Muslims know, it is quite skewed in a negative way, and it isn't the most honest depiction. And that's when I transitioned more into theatre and acting, because I felt that if we were going to tell our stories as Muslims, we needed to kind of take that agency back and that dignity. And storytelling and filmmaking does have a lot of, still a long way to go, but I felt that I needed to make a change in the media and the art space, because a lot of Muslims, when they still speak about Islamophobia, one of the big things that they will say is the media. It's the media says this, the media says that. So my motivation was the Godfather film and Islamophobia in the media landscape.
So do you remember what was your first acting experience? When did you?
Yes, very interesting. The Islamic Council of Victoria, ICV, put out a call out because somebody had come out to them to say, we're looking for a Muslim Middle Eastern looking person, can you help us? And I guess they found the ICV and they assumed the ICV would have, I don't know, Muslim boys or Muslim men ready to act or something. They didn't. The ICV does not have an acting school. So I hope to start one if anyone's here. Maybe we can start one from the ICV. But so the ICV contacted me because I was wanting to get into the media. So it wasn't even acting, but just they're like, oh, you like cameras, you like doing that, so why don't you do this? So then I was on a short film, and it was a community project, and I think we should really definitely support our community projects, because they are the kind of the breeding ground for a lot of people who maybe can't afford acting school. Acting school is very expensive, and with our Muslim parents, you know that acting school is probably not on their, you know, it's definitely not something that they probably want to send you to. So these community programs are really great. They do workshops, they do small projects, and it was a short film called Creed, where I played a Muslim guy who's fasting during Ramadan, and he can't play in his soccer tournament because his coach won't let him because he's fasting. So that was my first role. Yeah. I think as like a Muslim teenager, you learn acting very quickly with your parents. Like outside, you come, no baba, I didn't go to the party, very serious face. I think sometimes you learn to like, they talk a lot about it. You listen to a lot of Muslim actors now, they talk about code switching, their identity, everyone kind of does it. But in terms of the actual technique of acting, yeah, being on set, so I did a few commercials. I've been in like Coles commercials, MasterCard, recently did a Toyota commercial. So different types of commercials, you learn how to feel comfortable on camera. I think a lot of people now are actually comfortable on camera with their phones, but yeah, it is just a confidence thing in terms of, you know, being around on set, the lights, camera there, and just being you know, used to that. And then also, obviously, you need to learn the technique as well for acting. So there's different technique approaches. I actually learned from a Russian teacher in, you probably have heard of like Chekhov and Stanislavski. These are like approaches of acting, which is very kind of, it sounds weird, but you know, a lot of people today have talked about this Islamic experience and the idea of ihsan and excellence. Acting is, you know, a transformation. You're going through like some self-actualization and psychology, and then also physical, depending on the role. So you learn that, and then you learn from your fellow people. Acting is also a lot about understanding the history and context. So you have to do a lot of research as well. And then once you have all that information, then it's memorization. So similar to like what we learned in Sunday school with the Quran. You know, we're memorizing lines, memorizing. That actually has kind of helped me in acting as well with memorizing. So kind of putting all that together, started doing that. And then I was balancing my university, so I've got a couple of degrees, one in urban planning and a master's in international relations, so not in acting, but that I would do the late night classes here in Melbourne in acting schools across Melbourne, and also dua as well, and prayer and your mum's prayers and stuff like that. They kind of help. Most of us probably, our interaction with acting is probably going to the village cinema or Hoyts, or watching a movie at home. But theatre in Australia is quite significant. A lot of the actors that you see do really well go to theatre, and Melbourne Theatre Company is one of the biggest ones. So I was very fortunate to, my first debut at Melbourne Theatre Company was a lead role. And we also advocated for things, this was the interesting thing, the role was a Muslim role. It also was part of the VCE curriculum across Victoria for drama and theatre. So you had all these young people, young Australians who weren't Muslim, learning about a Muslim character in their theatre. So I kind of had a full circle moment from wanting to kind of change the discourse on Islamophobia. Then everyone at school is finally like learning about this Muslim character that I happened to play. It was quite humbling. Have done some other projects. Recently got picked for SBS Digital Originals to produce a show. We're very close, inshallah, to get a show picked up. That also will have Muslim characters. So I keep playing the Muslim character, which is great. I am Muslim, so why not? But the goal is to hopefully move the needle forward with the representation. I don't think acting is like the only way we can represent ourselves as a community, but a lot of young people, most of you probably have a Netflix subscription, so why not? Why don't we go into that space? And a lot of the issues I think with Muslim and filmmaking is we put the moral message first and then the acting later. So if you've ever watched Muslim content before with creativity work, they're compromising on the acting, the filmmaking, the cinematography, all these things, and they're putting the moral first. A good filmmaking is the person will feel the moral, the ethical conundrum when they're watching the film. So I want to elevate that conversation in our community as well, of like what good filmmaking looks like. From a spiritual perspective, with acting, like we have this thing when we're waiting in the wings in the theatre, so like you're waiting in the wings, you're waiting like 15-20 minutes before they say, okay, to get ready on stage. In that time, people are doing like breathing techniques, they're like doing their voice work. I'm reading Fatiha, Fatiha like just 10 times. I'm saying Bismillah, Bismillah before I get on stage. So it's very connected to my practice. Maybe it's like Muslim guilt as well. Like sometimes you think, oh, I've done something bad during the day, maybe that's why I didn't get the role, or I've done something good, that's why I got the role. So psychologically, as a Muslim, you have all those feelings, they're connected to your acting. But one thing that I'm really proud of is we did this, it's called Matched series. It was the first TikTok screen series that Screen Australia produced. And the team that I worked with on that, for the first time in like Australian film and screen history, they created a document or a contract which basically said that if you're making a story about Muslims, like half the people working on there should be Muslim, that there should be prayer rooms, that the catering should have halal meat, even things to do with gender issues, like, for example, if people are on set, cameramen, all this sort of stuff, like, if people feel like there's certain boundaries. So we made that contract writer the first one in screen history, so I was a part of that. Because before that, my dad used to think acting was all about cocaine and drugs, but it's not. I said, no, we have this proper, we're actually trying to help the Muslim community, and I think once we did that, we showed that. So I think with the Muslim community, arts has always been contentious. My mum's an art teacher. She teaches at an Islamic school. And I've seen, our community is getting much better with its relationship with art and understanding our history with art. Look at the Taj Mahal, look at, Islamic gardens, calligraphy, poetry. But filmmaking, it doesn't have to be Islamic fully, but we need to be able to tell our stories. We need to support our Muslim writers. Take back the reins, especially with the negative portrayals that are still out there. Yeah, I think it's still like 50-50, or and that's okay. I'm not here to like change people's theology. It's the same with like, I think Islamically, we have a difference of opinions on music, and I think with acting you do have to be careful because the spaces of acting might blur the lines of what's like Islamically acceptable as well, and so I'm not here to change anyone's religious view or belief, but then I'm there to also, for example, somebody told me that like if you get married in a film, it's like binding or something if you sign the contract, and I was like, oh no, it can't be, like, and the sheikh was like, yeah, if you sign the contract, blah blah blah. So I don't know if it always counts, but it's so I've been married like 8 times, I think.
You signed the contract, do this.
Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, I think you just have to like ask your Muslim friends and just speak to a Muslim uncle or auntie and like, do you watch movies? They'll be like, yes. Do you watch movies from back home? Yes. Do you listen to Fairuz? Yes. Do you listen to Qawwali music, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan? Like, the people that we're scared of about, they're consuming culture and arts, and what we recognize from the Muslim world, a lot of the time is the Islamic art and the art heritage. So we don't have to make haram films or bad films. We can make like films about the environment or housing or poverty, and it can still be halal coded. Yeah. But I would just say one thing as well. I think with anything, and we've like seen it with the people who have presented today. If you are good, like if you are like say with a good Muslim person or good human being, it will come out in your art form, and it will come out in your the way you perform. It will come out in your instrument. It will come out in your acting technique. So just be the best good you can be. Be the best good you can be, and from that goodness, inshallah will come. And then I don't know if Allah would deny that goodness if it is good, if it's truly good. Yeah. So this one's the difficult one because when you're an actor, you're kind of given like say a script, and you're taking an opportunity. Riz Ahmed, who's a British Pakistani Muslim actor, he said that like there's something called the Will Smith effect, which is you say you do like a film, say if you're a Muslim, they choose you as like say terrorist 1 or terrorist 2 or whatever, and you take the role because you're like, okay, I'm just getting an acting gig. Then the next film might be about like, okay, actually, why did terrorism happen? What are the circumstances that led to the terrorism? And you might actually have a few more lines, right? And there might be some nuance on like the intervention and all this sort of stuff, and you play a character where you see his arc rather than just the stereotype. And then the next movie might be like, okay, well, you're just a brown or a Arab or a hijabi person, and you're not related to any of those subjects, but you're still like the token character. Yeah. And then the next time you're just, Oz Malik, or you're just Will Smith. No one sees Will Smith as like he's playing the African American role, he's doing something for civil rights, he's just, Will Smith's in a movie, let's watch it. What is he doing? So there's that sort of hierarchy in acting, and some people will try to go in that path. But for actors, they have very little agency. That's why it's important we have Muslim writers, Muslim directors. They probably have much more power to influence change, whereas the actors are just taking on the jobs that they're given. And to be honest, like for me, seeing in the Australian industry, there's not many acting roles for Muslim characters, unless it's like, very crisis like based. If it's very trauma based, we don't really have like a Muslim alien or a Muslim like I don't know, avatar. I don't even know what that would look like. Muslim avatar. Yeah. One day I would really want to play Rumi in a film or something like that, or if anyone wants to fund that, or talk about like our Muslim experiences, maybe like a Western comedy Western on like the Cavaliers that came, something like that. But yeah. I think like please like definitely look at these like theatre shows, look at art pieces, go to the gallery and like support the Muslim community. Like a lot of the audiences are white, they're changing, they're like a general Australian audience. But if there's going to be a show about a refugee or a Gaza or Muslim relationship or whatever, like the audience probably won't look like this. So this is amazing that there are Muslims interested in the art. So we want to keep showing the people who pay a lot of money to fund millions of dollars into the industry that our community can do it as well. We have an audience.